Good evening. It's the Thursday, the 13th of February, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Diplomatic push. Trump speaks with Putin and Zelensky in first major effort to end Ukraine war. Ceasefire threat. Netanyahu wants Hamas to release hostages by Saturday or risk renewed fighting in Gaza. Cultural victory. Iraq recovers stolen artifacts from Japan and Switzerland, preserving national heritage.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Mehin De Silva.
Good evening once again. Donald Trump discussed the war in Ukraine in separate phone calls with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. It's the United States President's first big step towards diplomacy over a war he has promised to end.
Donald Trump on Wednesday discussed the war in Ukraine in separate phone calls with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's the U.S. president's first big step towards diplomacy over a war he has promised to end. In a post on his social media platform after speaking to Putin, Trump said the two leaders had agreed that negotiations should start immediately. Putin and Trump also agreed to meet, the Kremlin said, and Putin invited Trump to visit Moscow. Putin last spoke to a sitting U.S. president in February 2022. A call with Joe Biden shortly before ordering thousands of troops into Ukraine. Russia occupies around a fifth of Ukraine and has demanded Kyiv cede more territory and be rendered permanently neutral under any peace deal. Ukraine demands Russia withdraw from captured territory and says it must receive NATO membership or equivalent security guarantees to prevent Moscow from attacking again. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Wednesday said NATO membership was unrealistic, as was recovering the territory Ukraine had lost.
Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering.
Speaking from Kyiv Wednesday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said a minerals deal between Kyiv and Washington would provide Ukraine with a so-called post-war security shield.
And we believe that this is an important signal to the world, to the Russian leadership, that we stand together.
Trump has said he wants $500 billion in rare earth minerals from Ukraine. Zelensky said Kyiv would study the draft agreement presented by the U.S., adding that he hoped they could seal a deal at a meeting later this week in Munich with U.S. officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance.
The United States and the United Kingdom have refused to sign a declaration on inclusive and sustainable artificial intelligence at a landmark Paris summit in a blow to hopes for concreted approach to developing and regulating the technology. The document was backed by 60 other signatories, including France, China, India, Japan, Australia, and Canada.
As the artificial intelligence industry continues to grow rapidly, concerns around safety of the technology gave way to geopolitical competition at the Paris AI Action Summit. Leading the American delegation, which champions a hands-off approach, US Vice President J.D. Vance criticized European efforts to curb AI's risks, warning that, quote, excessive regulation could cripple the industry. He also appeared to take aim at China, after Chinese startup DeepSeek last month freely distributed a powerful AI chatbot that could challenge US leadership in the field.
Partnering with them means chaining your nation to an authoritarian master that seeks to infiltrate, dig in, and seize your information infrastructure.
Unlike China, the US was notably absent from a joint statement from the summit signed by more than 60 nations, pledging to promote AI accessibility to reduce digital divides and ensure AI is open, inclusive, transparent, ethical, safe, secure, and trustworthy. French President Emmanuel Macron argued that the AI sector needs rules on the global scale. He positioned Europe as a third way in the AI race, one that avoids dependence on major powers like the US and China. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed on the need for, quote, collective global efforts to establish governance and standards and ensuring access to all, especially in the global south. After co-hosting with France in Paris, India will host the next international summit on artificial intelligence.
Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic congresswoman who has been publicly questioned over her affinity for foreign dictators and promoting conspiracy theories, has been confirmed as the Director of the National Intelligence by the United States Senate. The Senate voted 52 to 48 with just one Republican voting against her confirmation.
Former U.S. Representative Tulsi Gabbard was sworn in on Wednesday as the nation's top spy, after a Senate confirmation that was divided mainly along party lines.
Mr. President, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for the trust that you have placed in me to fulfill this critical position as Director of National Intelligence.
Gabbard now will oversee the 18-agency intelligence community, including the CIA, and act as President Donald Trump's top advisor on intelligence issues. With little experience in this area, she was considered to be one of Trump's most controversial picks. Yet every Republican besides Senator Mitch McConnell, the party's former leader in the chamber, lined up behind the nominee. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked about this at her briefing Wednesday.
We're greatly disappointed in any Republican who chooses willfully to vote against the president's exceptionally qualified cabinet nominees and picks to lead his America First administration.
By comparison, no Democrats or independents voted in favor of Gabbard. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer expressed his strong opposition to her before the vote.
We simply cannot, in good conscience, trust our most classified secrets to someone who echoes Russian propaganda and falls for conspiracy theories. It's hard to believe, of all the talented and capable people, that this is the person nominated.
Gabbard, a 43-year-old former Democrat, had faced bipartisan questions about past statements seen as supporting U.S. adversaries and lack of experience that would have prepared her to manage a $100 billion budget. Wednesday's vote was another victory for Trump, as he pushes to secure quick Senate approval for all of his nominees for administration positions.
An explosion in a Taiwan department store killed 4 people and left another without vital signs, with video showing large pieces of debris raining on the street. 7 people were injured in the blast in the food court on the 12th floor of a department store in the city of Taichung.
Dramatic videos of the explosion in the city of Taichung on the island's west coast show debris and large panels of a mid-rise building's exterior blown out as a loud bang is heard. Footage shot by bystanders of the aftermath showed the street below littered with debris and 2 victims visible on the floor. The blast took place midday on the 12th floor of a popular shopping mall where a food court was under construction. According to the fire agency, at least 5 people have died and 20 others were injured. About 235 people were evacuated from the building and the area.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. With less than 2 weeks until Germany's elections, a new survey shows that economic concerns and rising prices are the top issues for voters. However, immigration is also dominating a political debate as Germany's leadership faces growing polarization and economic uncertainty ahead of the February 23rd vote.
German voters heading to the polls in less than 2 weeks have the economy and high prices on their mind, according to a survey. German reinsurer R&V surveyed 1,000 Germans online between January 23rd and 25th. 70% of respondents said they worry about the rising cost of living, up from 57% in the summer. Another 68% said they feared an economic downturn. That's up from 48% in the previous survey. But while economic concerns topped the list in the R&V survey, people told Berlin on Tuesday that immigration was dominating the agenda.
For me, of course, the economy, as everyone simply says, but freedom, democracy, and everything. Of course, migration policy is also very important, almost everything that people talk about.
Increasing competition from abroad, high energy costs, elevated interest rates, and uncertain economic prospects have taken a toll on Germany. The economy contracted in 2024 for the second year in a row. The dire situation is reflected in the country's storied auto industry, with Volkswagen and others cutting jobs as they look to remain afloat. Disagreements over how to save what was once Europe's economic engine led to the demise of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's three-way coalition last November. and set up the February 23rd vote. The R&V survey showed more than 6 out of 10 Germans consider politicians in both the government and the opposition to be overwhelmed by their tasks. And 3 out of 4 are worried about the polarization of society, up from 48% in the summer. The director of the study said the sharp increase is attributed to a series of high-profile killings in public spaces by people with an immigrant background and how the parties reacted to them.
Iraq has recovered several stolen archaeological artifacts, including the sun god statue and ancient textile panels from Japan and Switzerland, through diplomatic efforts. Officials say the pieces, which were announced in a joint press conference, are a vital part of Iraq's cultural heritage.
Finally, to Iraq, where the country's foreign minister on Tuesday announced the successful recovery of Iraqi artifacts from Japan and Switzerland. Speaking at the Iraqi National Museum, the minister said the historic items, including a statue of the sun god, rare murals, and some textured paintings, date back to ancient Mesopotamia and the Assyrian civilization. He said that some of the recovered artifacts had been loaned to Japan in the 1970s, adding that the returned items are not just objects, but integral parts of Iraq's national identity. Iraq's government has been using diplomatic channels to recover items stolen during years of conflict in the country.
There is growing concern that fighting could resume in Gaza after Israel's prime minister warned Hamas it would end the ceasefire if the Palestinian armed group does not return our hostages by Saturday. Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet met after Hamas said it was postponing freeing more hostages until further notice, claiming Israel had violated the terms of the 3-week-old ceasefire deal.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday declared the ceasefire in Gaza would end and fighting with Hamas would continue if the Palestinian militant group did not release hostages by midday Saturday. The announcement came after Netanyahu met with several key ministers, who he said gave the ultimatum their full support. It was not immediately clear if Netanyahu meant Hamas should release all hostages held in Gaza, or just the 3 who had been expected to be released on Saturday under the ceasefire. His office did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday also said Hamas should release all of the hostages by Saturday or face consequences.
I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out.
After nearly 16 months of war, Hamas has gradually been releasing hostages since the first phase of a ceasefire began on January 19th. But on Monday, the militant group said it would not free any more individuals until further notice, over accusations Israel was violating the deal by conducting several deadly shootings, holding up some aid deliveries, and impeding the return of Gazans to the Strip's north. Israel denies holding back aid and says it has fired on people who disregarded warnings not to approach Israeli troops. Following Netanyahu's ultimatum Tuesday, Hamas issued a statement renewing its commitment to the ceasefire and accusing Israel of jeopardizing it.
And Russia released American school teacher Mark Fogel on Tuesday after nearly 4 years in prison. His release followed an unannounced visit to Moscow by the United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Fogel was welcomed back to his homeland by the United States President Donald Trump at the White House.
Russia released American school teacher Mark Fogel on Tuesday after 3.5 years in prison. His release followed an unannounced visit to Moscow by US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Fogel was welcomed back to his homeland by US President Donald Trump at the White House. Fogel was sentenced to 14 years in prison for drug smuggling after he was detained at a Moscow airport with 17 grams of marijuana in his luggage. A member of his legal team said that the marijuana had been medically prescribed in Pennsylvania, where it is legal. His release comes as Trump seeks to improve relations with Moscow. Trump has promised to end the war in Ukraine, but has not yet shared how he plans to do so. The Kremlin said on Wednesday that a Russian citizen was freed from a US prison in exchange and that their name would be released in the coming days. Trump called Fogel's release a show of good faith from the Russians.
They were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people. They lost, in terms of soldiers, probably 1.5 million soldiers in a short period of time. We got to stop that war.
Fogel's lawyer, Martin DeLuca, told Reuters in a Tuesday interview that after Donald Trump was elected, quote, something seems to have changed in negotiations for his release. Previously, Fogel had not been designated as wrongfully detained, which opens up more diplomatic channels to negotiate a release. He was also left out of a historic prisoner swap last year that involved 24 prisoners, 16 sent from Russia to the west, and 8 sent the opposite way. In August, a Fogel family lawyer spoke to Reuters, criticising the Biden administration for doing too little to help them. The State Department at the time said that Washington had repeatedly called for Fogel's release and would continue to advocate for him, and declined further comment.
As President Donald Trump eyes a major deal on Ukraine's rare earths and critical minerals in return for the United States' support in the war against Russia, local operators at one of Europe's largest graphite deposits see an opportunity.
Kyiv argues there is trillions of dollars of untapped mineral wealth in Ukraine. It's at the heart of a joint partnership pitch made to US President Donald Trump by Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky. He wants security guarantees as part of a deal to end the war in the country. Trump has responded with interest, saying he wants $500 billion worth of Ukrainian critical resources. He sent his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to Kyiv to meet Zelensky this week. The idea has caught the attention of local operators in one of Europe's largest graphite deposits, who see an opportunity. But there is also a challenge for sites like this. The Zavalivsky mine is an aging Soviet-era complex where equipment was last modernized in 1965. Industry analysts say it could take years for investors to win back big profits from a sector reeling from the war and chronic underinvestment. The mine is hundreds of miles from the front, but has scrambled for resources since Russia's invasion 3 years ago. A number of its workers are also either serving in the military or were killed fighting for Ukraine. In an interview last week, Zelensky showed a map of Ukrainian minerals, including lithium, graphite, titanium, and rare earths. They are important for the manufacture of high-performance magnets, electric motors, and consumer electronics. He said less than a fifth of the country's resources, including about half its rare earth deposits, were under Russian occupation. He emphasized the need to help Ukraine protect what remains.
Let's take a short commercial break now. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. A light-hearted petition has been launched in Denmark to buy the state of California after Donald Trump said he wanted to take over Greenland. The petition's website claimed more than 200,000 people had signed it by yesterday lunchtime, although it is not clear how long it has been running.
It has sunshine, Silicon Valley, and an abundant supply of avocados. These are some of the reasons cited in a satirical Danish petition for wanting to buy California from the United States. It's a tongue-in-cheek response to US President Donald Trump's repeated wish to buy Greenland from Denmark, a proposition rejected by officials in Copenhagen and Greenland. By Wednesday, some 200,000 people had signed the petition, which, along with renaming Disneyland to Hans Christian Andersen Land, pledges to bring bike lanes to Beverly Hills and organic schmabel to every street corner. It adds rule of law, universal healthcare, and fact-based politics might apply. But why should Donald Trump give up the Sunshine State, it asks? He's called it the most ruined state in the Union and has feuded with its leaders for years, the website reads. We're pretty sure he'd be willing to part with it for the right price. It echoes comments Trump made about Greenland on his first day in office.
Greenland is a wonderful place. We need it for international security. And I'm sure that Denmark will come along.
Trump first floated the idea of buying Greenland in 2019. The autonomous territory lies on the shortest route from North America to Europe, making it strategically important. It's also home to a large American space facility. The island is believed to be rich in oil and gas as well as rare earth minerals. A poll conducted by Varian at the end of January showed 85% of Greenlanders opposed joining the US, while 9% were undecided.
Kanye West, also known as Ye, sparked controversy after an ad promoting his Yeezy clothing brand aired during the Super Bowl, just days before he made anti-Semitic and sexist remarks on social media.
Controversy within the growing controversy over Kanye West and his anti-Semitic comments. A new video circulating online appearing to show Jewish celebrities protesting the rapper who now goes by Ye. But the video is a fake, seemingly created without the artist's consent and made with artificial intelligence. Actress Scarlett Johansson, who is depicted in the video, denouncing it, saying, "I am a Jewish woman who has no tolerance for anti-Semitism or hate speech of any kind, but I also firmly believe that the potential for hate speech multiplied by AI is a far greater threat." One of the people behind the video saying it was not created for commercial purposes, but rather as an artistic and cultural statement. The video comes on the heels of West's latest anti-Semitic insult, selling swastika t-shirts on the website for his clothing brand, which he advertised in select markets during the Super Bowl, igniting instant outrage.
I was shocked.
The website now shut down, but West's voice and hateful declarations recently back on the very social media sites that just a few years ago restricted him because of his rhetoric. With much of the speech online protected by the law, many now calling for common sense decency. Actor David Schwimmer posting, "I don't know what's worse, the fact that West identifies as a Nazi or the fact that there is not sufficient outrage to remove and ban him from all social media at this point." From AI to hate speech, tonight the controversies igniting renewed discussions about what is or should be allowed online.
Rome's Palazzo Bonaparte hosts a major exhibition dedicated to the work of Norwegian painter Edvard Munch in what is billed as the largest such retrospective ever held in Italy. Titled The Inner Scream, the exhibition runs from 11th of February until the 2nd of June and features 100 masterpieces on loan from the Munch Museum in Oslo.
It's an invitation to explore Edvard Munch's troubled, colour-infused world. An exhibition tracking the Norwegian artist's life and career opened in Rome this Tuesday. Munch, who had a life marked by great sorrows and tragedy, is celebrated for delving into the deepest anxieties of the human soul as well as exploring the power of memory. The exhibition features 100 masterpieces on loan from the Munch Museum in Oslo, including a version of his most famous work, The Scream, which is on show in the form of a black and white lithograph from 1895. Other well-known pieces include Melancholy, The Girls on the Bridge, and Starry Night. His style serves to draw the observer into his disturbing and restless imagery. The exhibition opened at Palazzo Bonaparte after showing in Milan from September to January. Organisers said it was the most visited exhibition in Italy in 2024.
Well, that's a wrap from all of us at World News Tonight. Up next, Anuradhi Wickramasinghe is standing by for the nightly business report. I am Mihind Silva and we are going to leave you with the visuals of Michael Kors unveiling layered luxury at New York Fashion Week. Thank you for watching us. Have a good night.